Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, October 4th. We are on the Asian account. We need to play 2 Murloc cards and then 30 Druid cards, and then we are done with the Asian account. And then I just need to do the main account. I'm losing pretty badly on the playing the Murloc Shaman, so I'm going to play casual here and then we'll go back to playing ranked on the other cards that I need to play. Meanwhile, we're just kind of going through games, which we have a decent amount of games that came out between Wednesday and today, and that's pretty much it. Not a lot of news happened in this late part of the week. That's not a big surprise. And some decent amount of games came out, but not anything huge. Let's start with that. So we have a game on Steam here called Kingdom of Rhea. I assume that's how you pronounce that. R-H-E-A. This looks interesting, but the problem with something like this is it could really be an asset flip action and fantasy adventure game. And it really would just come down to, do they have like a really polished demo part that they're showing off? This is pretty dark in this video, whereas then the next section over here is way brighter. So we're seeing dungeons here, we're seeing military, we're seeing darkness, we're seeing light. It really is dark screenshot syndrome. The actual fight seems to be magic based from a distance, so they don't have great animations here. This game is free with single player only, so how in the world? The actual version is a beta demo one if you find any bugs, so yeah, this isn't an actual game. This is a problem that is growing worse and worse on Steam. People putting demos up for free and not labeling them as demos. It requires a third-party EULA, and you know, there's no reason to put this on the falling list. If they come out with a final version, they're gonna either fail because they didn't properly label their original game as a demo, and thus they don't get that pop as a new game when it actually comes out in the finalized perspective. This is not tagged early access, which feels like there should be a way to flag these kinds of games. Let's see. We have, how would you flag a game? Like, I'm logged in, so that shouldn't be a problem. There you go, flag. Click on the flag. Your options are legal violation, fraud, adult content harmful, child exploitation, broken, and defamatory. So there's, you could, I guess, flag it under fraud, but I imagine it would just get ignored. Broken might be another way to flag it, but there really is nothing here to say, you know what, you're just putting it on the storefront as a full product when really it's a demo, and you're not labeling it as early access, and you're not clearly depicting it as a demo. You're hoping, clearly when they do this, they're hoping that people will review the game well, so that they can change the price later from being free to something else. That would be almost certainly my guess as far as why they're doing it that way. So yeah, games like that going forward, they don't deserve follows. They're not even using their systems available to them properly. It would be like, well, here's going to be a bad comparison, because I always make bad comparisons. In my mind, it would be the equivalent of rewarding someone who had just driven in the middle of 2 lanes on the highway. It's like, no, like, you may have gotten to your location and destination in time, but you also totally violated all traffic and safety laws and proved yourself to be untrustworthy or incompetent. So yeah, those kind of games aren't going to get rewarded anymore, and that's an easy, like, decision to make that has nothing to do with like the content or style of the game. I can easily in the next Steam wishlist, Steam follow list cleanup just go, oh yeah, there's something shady about the way this particular release went down, so because they did something shady, I'm not going to reward them. And we can hold game publishers and game developers to a higher standard. We kind of hold AAA publishers to that higher standard. Like, the reason why I'm not playing Borderlands 3 and probably never will is because I'm holding 2K and Gearbox to a higher standard that they're not meeting. So if I can't do the same to small indie developers, then really it would be an unfair system. Can I get 5 here? I think I can. Because if I do this, this, and then this, and so then that just leaves me with playing, I believe, Paladin cards, Druid class cards. Alright. So we'll take Token Druid and we'll start playing ranked. Gamma Sutra has an article. The co-founder, Mike O'Brien, is leaving the Guild Wars developer ArenaNet, which ArenaNet, I think it is kind of more about making Guild Wars board games than they are about making Guild Wars video games. Unless I'm just totally confused. Like, maybe I should just... Yeah, we could just search here, Google ArenaNet. And then Wikipedia. Let's see. ArenaNet is a video game developer. Alright. They made Guild Wars Prophecy, Factions, Nightfall, Eye of the North Guild, Guild Wars 2, Ritlock's Critter Rampage, Heart of Thrones, and Path of Fire. So, yeah, apparently they have been made, apparently they have been a game company. I just was not really aware of that. Apparently, under the Wikipedia's controversies, on July 5th, 2018, Mike O'Brien announced 2 game developers, Jessica Price and Peter Fries, had been fired. Oh yes, that's Guild Wars. That's ArenaNet. This was the one where Jessica Price, and mostly Jessica Price and Peter Fries, for defending what Jessica Price said, came out and attacked the very, up until that point, loyal fan base of Guild Wars players, and she went into an insane, crazy screed against
this place is scary.
Where she was claiming that an actual fan who was trying to have a discussion about narrative writing, she went on this crazy rant about how he was being sexist to her and just mansplaining, and there's more details to it. A lot of the mainstream video game media tried to defend her actions, and I think ultimately even they couldn't twist the narrative enough to like I don't think anybody could buy the story the way it was depicted. And the way it actually went down, as far as I can tell. There was really no defending Jessica Price's comments. And I believe in the controversy also, and I guess this is still relevant, that there was more reveals. I think that Jessica Price and Peter Price had been these super crazy SJWs and caused a lot more problems. I don't think even going off the handle and attacking a single fan would have been enough to get her fired so quickly if it weren't for the fact that this was really just the straw that broke the camel's back. Now that I've been reminded what ArenaNet is and who Mike O'Brien is, Mike O'Brien, I assume, is leaving because he probably has a bad taste in his mouth from that incident, and he probably has just been, I mean, it was founded in 2000, in exactly 2000, so he's been working at the company for 19 years. It's hardly an example of him getting out early. So it's very possible that his leaving has nothing to do with the controversy too. Although people will bring it back up to that, so I suppose it's worthwhile to remind yourself, oh yeah, that whole ArenaNet stuff happened, but it wasn't until there was just some other cancel culture type thing. And even when the ArenaNet stuff happened, I hadn't even heard of the concept of cancel culture. That's how fast things have been moving in all of this. But clearly in retrospect, that's exactly what Jessica Price was trying to do, was cancel this fan for daring to question her narrative writing. Or ask her a question in general. The reaction she gave is usually, and I'll just generalize here, usually the kind of reaction I'd expect from somebody who is not confident in their own ability. Like somebody who has imposter syndrome, somebody who is an imposter, and actually isn't qualified to be doing the work that they are working. You don't abruptly attack people after a single question normally, because it makes you seem incredibly weak. Like, if somebody asks you a question, the easiest response is just to give no response, or simply give a short, trite response. You only would need to come out and attack somebody when they've got you dead to rights. Like, so in general, if somebody is attacking you in any kind of mental exercise, it probably means that you're winning. And I don't mean like a troll thing, first person to get mad loses type thing, which, like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just pointing out that if somebody's getting emotional and writing I believe it was like a paragraph response to what was probably 4 sentences of a question or response to an original post, that is a major disproportional response to something you could just ignore. In comparison, if somebody post something on any of my YouTube videos, which thanks for doing that, even if it is something negative, I usually just say thanks. Like, somebody just posted a video on one of the games that's airing out, a paragraph explaining the background of the story, and I'm like, thanks for the info. Unfortunately, the problem with that is, since I pre-record these videos so long ago, it's not like I'm even in the same mindset or remember what I said or did when playing those old games. And he wasn't really contradicting anything. He was giving me more information, which was great. It's like, yes, it would be wonderful to be 100% fully educated on every game before I start playing it. It's just not realistic, and just not really a realistic experience for most gamers either. It would be a very weird world if every video game made you sit through a 2-hour cutscene telling you how the game was made and where its provenance came from. Prominence came from? I don't know. What is that word? Yeah. We're telling you where it got developed from and such.
Nuts to you. Awaken.
So yeah. Or there have been a few times where people have said, you know what, that's you're totally wrong, and usually they say it in almost always, for the small amount of comments I've ever had to deal with, it's always been very respectful, so I just leave it up there and don't respond. Or if they're saying something really personally attacking, I might, in the past I've put maybe a trolling response to them, but yeah, I'm not gonna seriously get upset or engage with what some random person says on the internet, and I don't think any reasonable person over the age of 14 by this point should get upset based on what some random person says on the internet, because you're just going to spend your entire life being upset if that's your decision. Buff these guys up. Clear out the field. And then in return. Next we have a game on Steam, Rebel Inc. Escalation, which this is from Endemic Creations, who made Plague Inc. Evolution. It's, from what I understand, kind of the same game as Plague Inc., except for it's more localized and it's more about playing as rebels, I think, or playing as a government idea. A lot of these cutscenes that are being shown I don't think are really in the game. This does look different enough that it might be interesting. There is kind of this problem. It's early access, so I'm just going to put it on the fall list. Though, there is this problem though of Plague Inc. just constantly got more and more content. So there's definitely stuff on my Plague Inc. Account that I still haven't done, and I've not really had any desire to come back and do. And I enjoyed my time with Plague Inc., but there is this point where a lot of games just, they go too far with things. It just takes them too long to get things done. Like that. That's a great example of me taking too long. Yeah. And at a certain point, I've just had my 5 to 10 year supply of some games. Eventually, I'll forget all games, and then maybe if there's enough years left in my life, I'll go back and play them. But yeah, certainly there's a factor here. I wouldn't really want to go back and play even some of my favorite games like Portal right now, because I've played Portal 1 and Portal 2 multiple times in the past 5 years or so. So I've had my fill. Next we have a game on Steam called Arcane Dark Adventure. This is another one of these weird games that has like a directional vector line in it. I don't know why people are making games like this. I can only assume that it's some pre-made asset thing that makes sense. It doesn't even really make sense if you were playing this on a mobile phone game that you would have a like thing. It's just like a directional vector line for kind of no reason. Doesn't seem like it interacts with anything or does anything. This game otherwise looks like a 2D platformer version of Breakout. It's $8.49 and it's English and Russian, and I just have to assume this is a low effort Russian troll game. That's all I can really take from it. Let's see. This and then
Time waits for no one.
that. A lot to do. So I don't know how to really classify this news, but Gamasutra has this article. Randy Pitchford personally and the Xbox Gear counselor have agreed to settle their legal dispute. It seems like all the old drama is coming back. Maybe perhaps it takes just this long exactly to get a court date and be forced into arbitration and then solve it. So Wade Callender, who was the Xbox legal counselor, is currently, as I understand it, working for the National Rifle Association. I don't know a lot about what's going on in the NRA, but from what I hear, there's a lot of people that have left the NRA and joined a separate gun lobbyist organization, and that they are particularly a lot of people in the NRA are not happy with the main guy in charge of the NRA. Does that have anything to do with Wade Callender? No, but there is allegations of impropriety inside the NRA, and so it's weird to bring on a lawyer who is alleged to be basically laundering money by Randy Pitchford, who is frankly not a reliable narrator at all. Meanwhile, there was mudslinging on both parts, and the sad truth of these stories are most of these end in a NDA slash non-disclosure agreement slash non-disparagement agreement, which I don't know what you call a non-disparagement agreement, because that would be an NDA also. Gearbox filed a lawsuit in 2018 for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. Callender filed his own lawsuit accusing Pitchford of violating multiple contracts and striking a secret deal to receive $12 million bonuses that the Callender team argued would have gone originally to Gearbox staff, which that seems to be true. Let's see. According to his statement that the Hollywood Reporter, and it's interesting the Hollywood Reporter has got this, both parties have agreed to settle, though little on the terms of the actual settlement were mentioned of the dismissal. There's a quote here: upon review of all evidence, who's saying this? Upon review of all evidence in the case, it was the opinion of the council that the evidence exonerated Randy Pitchford from the allegations against him. All misunderstandings between the parties have been corrected, and apologies were exchanged. Reads the statement published by the Hollywood Reporter. Because the parties are mutually bound by confidentiality, no additional statements are forthcoming. What's interesting here is the way this is phrased in this quote is it seems like Randy Pitchford's team got more out of this than Wade Callender, because there's no statement here that says all the evidence exonerated Wade Callender. So that seems oddly strange. And this might just be a settlement of Wade Callender's countersuit against Randy Pitchford, and not a settlement of Randy Pitchford's lawsuit against Wade Callender. So there may still be some weirdness here. What's really weird though is that this, either by design or just incompetence, they failed to get this agreement out in time for Borderlands 3 to be out and to kind of wrap up the story. So it's kind of odd now that the game is out that this announcement would, and this story would suck up the oxygen in the air for Borderlands 3, because this certainly is not good press for Borderlands 3, and it would have been great if this never happened. It would have been great if this had settled before Borderlands 3 had come out. People would have very quickly forgotten it if it had been settled a week before Borderlands 3 came out. But yeah, I wonder if perhaps, and so you just kind of never know on these things, perhaps Wade Callender did get some money out of this settlement, because I don't see why a lawyer would agree to saying all the evidence against Randy Pitchford exonerate him, which nothing is really going to exonerate Randy Pitchford in the eyes of the public, frankly. Like, nobody is going to really believe that at all. But the only way I could see Wade Callender, and hopefully he had some legal staff working for him and not just running the lawsuit by himself. Maybe this really does just center around the idea that Wade Callender's got this new high-paying job of the NRA, and he doesn't want the bad press on himself. But I don't see how he would agree to that specific sentence, which had that one sentence been removed and it just started with all misunderstandings between the parties have been corrected and apologies were exchanged, that would have been a much more realistic sentence. Of course, the problem here is who was the Hollywood reporter talking to? So I have to now click on the link to the Hollywood Reporter article, and I really question if what is going on here is that the Hollywood Reporter perhaps has some vested interest in
Time waits for no one.
making the entire article exonerate Randy Pitchford. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he has some influence for one reason or another. Let's see. Apparently they're getting this directly from a filing in the Dallas County, Texas District Court on Thursday. It's the official dismissal statement obtained. So, yeah. Callender, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Wade Callender was a childhood friend of Randy Pitchford. So, yeah, take some of that with this story, I suppose. Also, that even his own friends are suing him. And frankly, I would not be surprised if we heard 6 months from now, a year from now, if Penn and Teller, who are friends with Randy Pitchford, or at least Penn's friends with Randy Pitchford, I wouldn't be surprised if they start suing him too for lack of payment or some other shenanigans. Depending, it really just depends on, I guess, how well Randy Pitchford treats Penn and Teller.
Versus Valera.
Watch your.
I must
Let's see.
protect the wild.
So, yeah, the endings of these stories are usually incredibly disappointing, and this was no different. Meanwhile, there's plenty of other accusations that make Randy Pitchford look terrible, and this really doesn't feel like this was a concerted effort to cancel Randy Pitchford, and that he's actually a decent person now. If anything, it seems like Randy Pitchford is ever increasingly for years now ruining his own life through illegal actions, near illegal actions, just stupid actions, even if they're not illegal. Personally, I still feel like he's not properly disclosing when he promotes and sends his employees to eat at the Nerdvania Cafe that his wife owns and thus he owns. I don't think he's disclosing properly that yeah, that's a ad, that's a sponsored ad that he has ownership in, so he has a vested interest in those in that cafe succeeding. Any number of weird, strange, or just unprofessional actions we've heard about, those don't disappear. His entire credibility has been shot over the last year, and frankly, had he stepped away after the first incident, there probably would have been a lot less reason for people to have brought up the several other incidences that people have complaints about. Like, he really starts these fights. He's the one that normally is talking trash. He's the one that's usually, like, Wade Callender's a great example. Wade Callender would not have countersued Randy Pitchford had Randy Pitchford not sued him in the first place. So he was asking for that, and frankly, Randy Pitchford should have at least enough sense to know, look, everybody's got some kind of dirt they could say on you because you've done so many ridiculous things, so many unprofessional things, that you will not come out squeaky clean if you try to go after these people. And it's kind of a constant run of Randy Pitchford directly not understanding that, oh yeah, if I insult this person that knows this deep dark secret about me, they're going to reveal that deep dark secret about me, and I'm going to look worse than they are. So yeah, as a CEO, he has like no leverage over anybody because everybody has leverage on him, which is a terrible position to be in as a CEO. As I'm fantasizing about potentially starting a bar, like if I had an employee who knew some deep dark secret about me, guess what? That employee would be kindly asked to leave the job very quickly in a gentle way. I would not want them around potentially spreading rumors or even speaking truths. So yeah, I would definitely want it to always be, if I'm the owner of any business, I'm the person in charge. I'm the one that has the leverage, and if anybody knows anybody's deep dark secrets, it should be the person in charge, not the employees. Whereas in Randy Pitchford's case, it seems like everybody knows his deep secrets and nobody has anything else to hide.
Job's done.
Moving on, Gamasutra has a blog here, Postmortem, the Paynes Creek Killings, which is not a game I've heard about. Looks like it might be a murder mystery, maybe a horror asset flip walking simulator game. But inevitably this is just an advertisement for a game that doesn't really matter. Here we have some, like I believe this is a Unity blueprint or some kind of blueprint. Which some of the programming in Unity and Unreal in their blueprints, I think, are somewhat helpful for middle tier qualified programmers, but not super helpful for low-end programmers. I am still kind of half and half as far as whether the blueprint elements make any sense whatsoever on a programming level. They start to make a lot more sense on the graphics and the animation level, like procedurally generating movements and actions of the characters, because then you can definitely have somebody who is focused and an expert at making 3D modeling their animations and have them use the same software that the programmers are using. But they're really still not using the same software. It's just one giant bit of software that is as if you combined a Microsoft compiler with Adobe Photoshop and Blender and several other things. It's really a multitasker to the point where it stops making sense, and more separate unitaskers might be more efficient for everybody. But eventually, I suppose Unity and Unreal, as development platforms, will get so streamlined that it will make more sense. Maybe they already are. Next we have a game on Steam here called Austerlitz, which I don't know if this is supposed to be a misspelling of Austerlitz, or if this is just some other Middle European world. Whatever it is, it looks like it's a old DOS game they're calling a classic, but to me it doesn't look fun or interesting. It's from Mirrorsoft, who have this habit of bringing old, unrecognizable DOS games, $3.24 English only.
Time waits for no one.
As a publisher, it's like there's a whole collection here of games from Mirrorsoft as a publisher, and none of them have any reviews because they really just don't have any relevancy by modern standards. I'm not sure that they had relevancy even in the beginning. And I'm getting all these wins, and I guess I'll take a win streak if I can get a win streak. But like, I'll take win streaks if I can get them. But I'd like to actually play for a while. Next, we have a game on Steam called Salad Fields, which looks like it's mostly just a low-effort, weird-looking game. Looks like it's mostly a troll game from the looks of it. Early access, $12.99 English only. Yeah, these feel like joke games that they try to get streamers to play, not things that really should be highlighted or promoted by anybody. And I don't mind the game being funny, but first and foremost it has to be an actual fun game to play. Same is true for this next game we have on Steam, Rolling Rumble. Here we have Dark Screenshot Syndrome and just asset flip colors and platforms, and it's apparently a 3D Marble Madness game where you're also shooting player versus player. It's early access, $8.49 English only. 12 achievements. Yeah, nothing here looks particularly interesting. And then next, it seems like all the troll games came out today. Here we have a game called Easy Piano Game, which doesn't look like it really is a piano game as much as it is a keyboard translation, computer keyboard to a piano keyboard software. Like, I don't see any reason why you would ever want this. It is, I guess, worth mentioning. At one point, I had a computer keyboard that had piano keys at the bottom and was a keytar. And I believe it could even be a MIDI output device too. I wonder if I still have that somewhere around. Probably. I had a tendency to collect weird keyboards. And it was a pretty nice keyboard on itself. It had a little bit of plastic that you put over the piano notes, but then, not being somebody who knew how to play piano, it was also kind of ridiculous for me to own it, and there was nothing else you could really program the keys to do. Meanwhile, this game fundamentally misses an important concept of getting the touch feel of an actual keys. If you were going to play a game, which I don't think this really is much of a game, that was the equivalent of a Mavis Beacon teaches typing for playing piano, you probably just want a cheap Casio that you could plug into either the MIDI port of an audio card or plug in via USB by modern standards into a computer, or just the audio input. Any of those would probably work pretty well if the software accepted them, and any good software should probably accept all of those. Easy Piano Game is $5.99 as English and Russian, and I think this is gonna go under the category of low effort Russian game. Yeah, a cheap $100 Casio keyboard probably has built-in software to train and teach, particularly if you get one that lights up, which frankly the light up features are usually only like $1. Like they're insignificantly more expensive than the non-light up versions, and you're going to be in a much better point. As I understand it, you probably want at least a 108 key keyboard, so if you're getting something with less than that, you're probably not getting a full experience that you should be getting for any kind of keyboard type thing. I would say also, getting any kind of cheap electric keyboard, try to get it to be pretty small and somewhat durable. Almost certainly any keyboard sitting on the stand that would be included in it is probably too expensive, would get knocked over, so you probably don't ever want to even use the stand. Find a nice sturdy table, but there's a decent chance that, particularly this would be the assumption, kids are going to be learning to play keyboards. You're going to have this desire to make sure it doesn't fall over and immediately break. Generally, I'd say an electric keyboard, if you want to learn piano, is also a secondary thing you get after you get piano lessons, and a thing you don't want to spend too much money on because kids will probably change their mind. That's kind of the beauty of Rock Band's guitars and Rock Band, is that any kid that wanted to think about being a guitar player could get, particularly in their heyday, the entire guitar sets very cheaply, and try it out before spending $1,000 on a real guitar set. Let's see. Just a couple more Druid cards to play, and then we'll be done with the Asian account. Next we have a game on Steam here called Arabian Stones VR Sudoku game. I don't know why you're calling it a Sudoku game, which is clearly originated from Japan as a numeric crosswords thing. Why are you putting this in an Egyptian Arabian setting? And then why are you putting this in VR where that's going to just make it a nightmare to play? Like, this is a bad idea on top of a bad idea on top of a bad idea. Like, $4.99, English only. Clearly this is just asset flips. Yeah, I don't even get it. Like, I don't even get why you would brand it as Arabian numbers. Or Arabian sands. They are Arabic numbers, I believe, but that's Sudoku is clearly Japanese from a much more modern time frame. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Frontline Zeds, another zombie game. It looks like it's a tower defense game. Doesn't look particularly well received at mixed reviews already. So I don't see a real reason to even put it on the follow list. It's $9.95 discounted. It has a bunch of language supported. I'm fairly certain I've seen something very similar to this, but didn't put it on. Either I didn't put this on the follow list the last time I saw this, or there's a game that looks almost exactly like this. A tower defense game that with zombies is effectively just Plants vs. Zombies, and I think Plants vs. Zombies proved that doing it in a cutesy cartoony way was way more interesting than doing it in a hyper realistic way. So I think people have given up on the idea of doing it the old-fashioned, doing a hyper-realistic one, or at least I would suggest giving up on that idea. Next game we have on Steam is called The Wild 8. This is mostly positive. It's finally out. It's been early access up until this point. It's discounted to $16.99 and has a bunch of language supports. The main thing that I have a problem with is every time I've looked at this, it's looked pretty uninteresting. It's a survival game in low polygonal graphics, Alaska. It's kind of Minecraft with just more wolves and bears attacking you. And I don't think there's really any other story or elements, and these pictures don't even want to load up. It seems like there might be some kind of secret caves or something, but yeah, there's some kind of technology they threw into this. That's where you get teleported to a different area.
I wonder.
That's weird. I wasn't expecting that. So this new update seems to have added something, but it really just does not look that interesting.
Time waits for no one.
And so I'm in this weird position where it's reviewed well, and theoretically I should put it on the fall list, but in reality I kind of just don't want to. And hey, I guess if I'm not hot on a game, I'm just not hot on a game. So instead of agonizing over it, I'll just not put it on the follow list and move on with my life. A Knight's Quest is out for Xbox Live at $24.99. It's from publisher Curve Digital. I recognize that publisher. A gorgeous adventure, epic scale. Play as Rusty, a clumsy adventurer who accidentally sets about the end of the world. Sounds like it's a pretty basic game. This is the kind of game I'd like to double check and see if there's actually this has come out on PC or not. Speaking of coming out on PC, we'll talk about it later, but apparently Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out on PC in some way, form, or factor. I wouldn't be surprised if it's only through the Rockstar launcher and not through Steam. And you're still kind of in this weird position where Red Dead Redemption 1 isn't on PC, and Red Dead 1, the game that predates the Redemption series, is not on PC. I don't think it really matters that Red Dead games aren't on PC, but the others kind of do.
Job's done.
And we'll talk about that maybe a little bit more when we get to the article. Gamasutra has this article: Monument Valley developer Us2 threatened with legal action over union busting. The Independent Workers Union of Great Britain has accused Monument Valley and a Symbol with Care developer Us2 Games of union busting, is threatening the studio with legal action. The IWGB alleges that they fired the senior programmer Austin Kelmore after he was questioned by management about his union activities, and then breached UK law by denying him union representation at his disciplinary and dismissal meetings. Well, yeah, that's definitely union busting. Even if it isn't, you violated your agreement with union, the agreement with the union, or the in the UK law mandated regulations with the union. So yeah, that's definitely union busting. I don't know why you'd even try to have a business in the UK if you didn't know that was the law of the land and that was something you were going to have to live with and accept. Meanwhile, if this was done in the United States, this would just be normal everyday business. Let's see. What's interesting is apparently the management directly said they were putting him on leave and then dismissed, which is crazy. Like there's no reason to say we're putting somebody on leave and then dismissed. You should just say we're gonna fire him and pay him out for his contract. So yeah, I believe there was another story, or maybe this is the same story that we'll be talking about, where in California a bunch of people have been laid off, and then they brought up a vote whether they want to unionize, which could be an attempt, and we'll have to look at the details. You could certainly fire all the employees that are pro-union, have a vote with all the remaining employees who are anti-union to say no, we don't want to unionize, and then that vote would stand as kind of a precedent to say we already had a vote to have a union, everybody said they didn't want it because they stacked the decks in their favor. And yeah, it's not, even in industries that really, really need unions, I would say it's probably not uncommon for barely 51% of the employees who are going to bother to vote to actually want a union. Because, let's face it, people just don't know what's good for them, and people have heard a lot of propaganda about terrible unions, and there have definitely been some terrible unions out there. without realizing that more often than not, you're already in a terrible situation at most jobs. If they're talking about having a union at a job, it's because the management sucks there. Like, happy employees don't discuss unions. It just doesn't happen. So if the discussion is happening, it's probably either time for you to consider leaving that job or just signing up, and maybe with your involvement in the union at your job, it won't be as bad. It won't be a bad union. Getting involved is the way to avoid problems like that. Moving on, Techcrafter has an article. Steam Labs Deep Dive gets updated. I don't know if this is just another update for Deep Dive or if this is simply the same update. I don't think it really matters too much
versus Thrall.
in one way or the other.
Your soul shall be mine.
The Deep Dive... Let's see. Can we do a deep dive from Remember Me like they did to show off what they did? Oh, no, not really. You know, Remember Me in particular, while I show this off, very pretty game. Played awful, but in comparison to the game Echo or the game not Control. Control is better than Remember Me by a few steps as far as the gameplay mechanics go. Although I would also argue that the visuals are not as varied or interesting in Control. The game Echo looks as pretty as Remember Me, but plays nowhere as good as gameplay mechanic. And then the other game I played was geez, I can't even remember the name of the game, but it was also somewhat pretty, particularly in the screenshots, but then very lackluster in story and environments and everything. It by far was the worst example of a run of different types of games with very pretty main characters, female protagonists mostly. I would say Remember Me, even compared to Control though, also had a much better story it wanted to tell that is kind of its own unique thing, whereas Control is really just stealing concepts from SCP, which I've never before playing the game had even heard of SCP, and I still don't think that website's concept is deep enough or interesting enough to interest me. Like SCP, if you were going to do anything with it, I would have ripped it off and made a TV series. I definitely would not have made a video game, and even if I had made a video game, I wouldn't have made one that made one single character be the center focus of the entire story, because that's in the exact opposite concept of what the SCP website is. It's a faceless, nameless organization that is dealing with a variety of anomalies, and the anomalies are the focus. Control is totally a focus on Jessie Faden. Like, she's the main focus. Someone was talking about Control, and the interesting twist that kind of happens there, and just how crazy the game is, that she calls the Hiss, the main enemy, the Hiss. She coins that phrase. And yet, somehow, in the pieces of found paper, like the backstory that you were supposed to be reading, and I read basically none of, you start to see the enemy referred to as the Hiss. So it's like your will is imposing what is being said on these documents, and time is kind of irrelevant. Actions and causes seem to go in backwards ways, which is an interesting, like, either Easter egg or just straight up continuity error in the game. But in the main storyline, the part I played of Control, that never really gets addressed. It's just creepiness for creepiness sake, and that's pretty much it. Let's see, will this give a pump up for the 3? No.
That's incredible.
So it's funny, people are still talking about Control, and I'm still talking about Control, but really I should just forget it and move on, because it really doesn't deserve as much space in my mind as it's taken up. But I'm sure we'll be talking about it until at least all the DLC elements come out, and see if maybe it ties some things up in a more interesting way. But I seriously doubt I would ever want to go back and play it anymore. There's so much content that I didn't even play, and I have no interest in it. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article for the PC and Switch. Corpse Party Blood Drive launches October 10th. This is another in the Corpse Party series, but apparently a different animation style, because the Corpse Party series up until this point has all been visual novels, and this looks like a top-down, almost like horror game. Let's see. New gameplay systems for more exciting interactions, highly detailed 3D environments with dynamic lighting. There's a trailer here, and for 2 reasons I will skip over and not show this, but I'll tell you what I see. One, content ID being one reason, and the other being family friendliest guidelines. As I understand it, unless I'm thinking of a completely different series, Corpse Party is the game where it's a visual novel every time there's I totally played that wrong. Yeah, there's... Yeah, I think I might be thinking of a different visual novel series. Corpse Party is a horror visual novel series, and I'll just leave it at that because I don't remember. This one in particular looks like it's low polygon 3D images, and seems to be really off the mark as far as the level of quality of the other Corpse Party series. So I really don't think Blood Drive would be one to play unless I'm just going to play them all, which I don't know if I own them all, or if I just own like the first one of about 12 on Steam, and I was going to test that out and see. Like, it really would be a great series to play one every Halloween. Like, that would make some sense. But only if it actually is interesting. Like, we may play the first one and find it's not that interesting to me. But it certainly is interesting to enough people, because you wouldn't be on your 12th iteration of a series if some people weren't buying it. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article, Splatter Tiles, how to tile your game without all that fuss. Seems to be an advertisement for, or either this is a blog on programming, or this is just a example of how to tile your game so it looks interesting in the background and looks randomized. Which, in all fairness, some of these tiling examples like this does not look terrible. I'd say this kind of looks pretty bad. There are definitely more complicated. This looks kind of bad, but not terrible. I've seen a lot worse. Like there are better procedural generated ways, certainly, to make dirt background and make it look not like it's just a bunch of tiles on a grid. But those usually take a lot more programming. I don't think I'm gonna bother to show this because of YouTube family friendly guidelines, but TechRaptor has an article. Nutaku's My Naughty Tales Let You Make Your Own Stories is the title of the article. And then there's a subparagraph, and you can create puzzles too, slide puzzles. These are realistic 3D models, and not hyper-realistic 3D models by any means, but like 3D models of women that you can kind of pose and make your own stories to. Probably not something that anybody should buy, but I don't know if you really are even buying them from Nutaku, or if you can just get them via some subscription or something. I don't even know what the monetization policy of Nutaku is, come to think of it. Moving on to more important news. Gamma Sutra has an article here. The Writers Guild of America has removed video game writing category from the 2020 awards due to the lack of titles that qualify for consideration, though the guild is open to bringing it back if certain conditions are met. So this is probably the worst damnation you could possibly have of the state of video games in this year. Is that the writing is just all so bad that the Writers Guild doesn't even want to read a synopsis of the story, or doesn't want to play the game. I don't even know what they would have to do to vote on it. I imagine if it's anything like the Emmys, you just kind of get people to vote on it who haven't even played the games. Let's see. The Video Game Writing Award started in 2008, so 11 years. It has given awards to a game called Deadhead Fred, I've never heard of. Star Wars The Force Unleashed, I think that's a pretty good story. The Last of Us, I think that's a pretty good story. Horizon Zero Dawn. Several Uncharted and Assassin's Creed games claimed the Outstanding Achievement in Video Game Writing Award. And the final recipient is God of War, the new God of War game. So you could potentially make the argument that God of War destroyed that category, but honestly, it's much more realistic to say that the video game industry, the AAA industry in particular, has destroyed that category because they've just not bothered to have good writing. And you can go into a lot more deeper speculation as to why that is. Is it because every single game that you come out that has deep writing gets attacked both from the extreme left and the extreme right for being either too political one way or not political enough in another way? Is it because the video game industry in general has just moved to a focus of having more and more free-to-play elements and free-to-play games in their games, and thus less focus on story? The mobile game that I'm playing, Destiny's Child, it puts a pretty large emphasis on having season 1, and the global version has now started season 2. It actually tries to put some story. There's definitely a little bit of story with every new character added. As a gacha game, new characters are added constantly. With every event, there's a new story added. The main story mode is getting more content. And they've also expanded their YouTube channel to even put out more side story that way. So, like, even if it is a mobile game, you can certainly have story if you focus on it. And it can be moderately good if you write it moderately good. Still, a game story doesn't have to be bad. It just kind of is. And The Last of Us 2, as it comes out, not potentially being eligible for the award that it won in its predecessor won, puts you in this weird position where that might be another damning comparison to make if the story in Last of Us 2 is actually pretty bad, which some of the trailers are giving some kind of indication that that might be the case. Like, I'm trying to think. People might say Control is the most recent game with a good story, and I would disagree with that, but I respect other people's opinion there. It surely seems like a lot of people do like that, but I don't think Control compares emotionally to even the God of War reboot. So, yeah, I don't know what you really do there.
As you command.
This one attack and rush. And we'll draw a card. And attack, and then in return. Next we have a game on Steam called Football the Hardest Job. This seems like this is a soccer related clone of the Reigns series from a different developer, but focused around soccer and stealing a concept, probably doing it a lot worse. This is $1.39 discounted, English only. And we can look at this developer and just make sure they aren't the developer of Reigns. They aren't. The only other thing they have on Steam is an RPG character builder. So that pretty much tells me that they're making low effort products on Steam and just trying to steal people's money. Yeah, besides Control, I don't even really remember what came out this year. It's been a long year, to say the least. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's kind of a large amount of things that came out and I forgot about them. The new Wolfenstein game, Youngbloods, that certainly wouldn't deserve to have any writing award be given to it. That's pretty much all I can think of. Alright, we need to win one more game with any class, so what do we want to play? What do we think would win the most? Let's try Silence Priest or Paladin. Let's go with Paladin. And then I need to really hurry up because I believe I'm on my America's account. And I don't know why I'm looking here, what that would tell me.
You asked for it.
So
I will fight with honor.
I guess I'll jump out and check what account I'm on. But I think I'm close to being done with all the accounts. And like, I should break up another recording, but I really don't have a lot to say here. So let's just go through games real fast. Here's a game called Castle Woodwharf. It looks like low effort garbage. It's free. It's English only. It has 5 achievements. Not gonna say anything more about it than that.
Job's done.
Let's see. I think Tech Raptor, we already talked about this, but Bradwell Conspiracy launches next week, which this is an advertisement for a game that's coming out next week, so we don't really need to focus on that. Surviving Mars is the next free game on the Epic Games Store, so I'll continue with my policy of adding these games to the Epic Store just so I have a backup account. Tech Raptor has the same article, Us Two Games accused of union busting over Ashton Kelmore dismissal. I would not be surprised if that gets builds to a bigger story by next week. Tech Raptor has the return of Obra Dinn console release dates, so just like the same stories twice from different people, which is fine, I guess. See, next we have a game on Steam that's 101010, which looks like it's a 3D Tetris game in VR. This concept's not terrible, but putting it with a low effort name and a terrible unremarkable name. It's free, I suppose, if you have VR, so go check it out, I guess, if you want to play a terrible, slow, turn-based, it looks like, Tetris game. Like, it's gonna get really boring really fast because there's no falling, there's no testing. Like, really, this is an example where 3D Tetris falls apart more than anything.
Let me think.
Alright. I can do 4. So if we do that,
Converting stored energy. Converting stored energy.
do that.
Move quickly.
Gamatsu has an article here. Chasm version 1.070 update now available for consoles, adds arcade mode, customized controls, and more. Chasm, I guess is how you'd pronounce that. Looks to me like it's a pixely style game of some sort. Yeah, looks like it's kind of like a Metroidvania game. Doesn't look bad. It doesn't look bad. I'm kind of surprised I don't recognize this game.
I wonder.
Apparently, it's not on PC, or the new update is already out for PC. That might be the case. So I'll have to do some more research. Let's see. Business Insider. This must have been retweeted from Twitter Gaming or YouTube Gaming. Professional gamers reveal the best things about their profession. I don't know if you really even would put me in the realistic category of being a professional gamer, but like, I can tell you the worst things a lot more than I can tell you the best things. As far as being a professional gamer, although also professional gamers, they might mean esports players specifically, not just random streamers, which there's a bit of a difference there, or a big difference actually. Yeah, being a professional gamer is like dreaming to be a professional football player. It's going to work for a insignificantly small percentage of people, and everybody else is going to have their dreams crushed. And then even when they do hit pro status, they're going to find that it's not as fun as they thought it was going to be.
For justice.
let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. A satirical Metroidvania game called Super Epic is coming in December. So, lots of Metroidvania games. Let's see. Now, being satirical in nature might just be an indication that it's a troll joke game. And frankly, a lot of what I'm skipping around this trailer for does look to me to be more of a troll joke game than something I'd actually be interested in playing. So we'll see if Super Epic can carefully dance that line, or if it's going to totally turn into just yet another game that I immediately dismiss. Gamatsu has an article here. Forever Entertainment announces House of the Dead remake and House of the Dead 2 remake. We kind of already knew this. Maybe it was a rumor. The big question is, how much of a remake is this going to be? Are they really going to get this series on a new path where it actually, as an on-rail shooter where you're shooting zombies, is entertaining and fun? Or is it going to just be the same old janky, terrible games that the entire series is known for? I mean, it's pretty pathetic that Typing of the Dead is probably the only of the Dead series games that you should even think about owning or playing, and you're only owning that and playing it as a goof, and more than anything else.
Time runs out on me.
Next we have a game on Steam, Endless Fables 4 Shadows Within. It's a hidden object adventure game. Yep, they seem like they're still happening. $11.99 discounted, English and a bunch of other languages. Yeah, my opinion on playing any more of those is still firmly set under no thank you classification. There probably is a disconnect there. Like, if I'm holding things to a higher quality, I'm fairly certain I'm on the Americas account, but let me just exit out real quick and double check. Yeah, I'm on the Americas account. We started on the Asian account. Let's go to the European account and just make sure we don't have any data quests done. Otherwise, yeah, we'll just play the European account while we try to get the rest of this news done. And while it's loading, here we have a game called Close Combat, The Bloody First. Looks like a military sim strategy game. It's already mixed. It's $39.99. English, German, Spain, Spanish, and French. Without even looking at the screenshots, though, I know I don't really want to play a historical, tactical military game from a top-down perspective. So, of course, this isn't making it to the fall list. Yeah, and I have nothing to do. I've gotten all the daily quests done so easily that it doesn't even really matter what I play. But I don't really want to start a single-player playthrough either of like any of the solo adventure stuff. This would be theoretically the time to do that, but that I don't want to spend that extra time. I don't want to commit another hour starting from now to do a single player experience. OpenCritic tweeted out that they have a new feature on their website where you can support by the % recommended, or was it number of reviews? One of these two things when you're browsing games. So % recommended right now is telling you several games that are 100% recommended by all the reviewers. And Diablo 3 Ultimate Evil Edition, I didn't even know that existed. Last of Us Remastered, I didn't remember that there was a remaster of that. Interesting. So if I was just to go through this list, and if you were new to video games, I guess you have a decent list here of just like, hey, buy this game, Binding of Isaac Rebirth, Star Wars Pinball. Like, Binding of Isaac Afterbirth. I cannot understate how popular the Binding of Isaac series is, and it's still kind of a sleeper hit because of its weird religious overtones, or
I hope you like my invention.
direct tones, frankly. Nier Automata, Become His Gods Edition, 100% recommended. Yeah, this first page of OpenCritic alone is just like the perfect shopping list to narrow down to your own tastes. And you can also filter it by platforms, and you could filter it by like years. So if you didn't want to play any really old games, you can filter those out too. Although it seems like they are mostly focusing in on relatively modern games anyways. Nobody's coming back and playing to buy Diablo 1 on the first page. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Unity has acquired the live game management platform Chili Connect. Never heard of Chili Connect, but anything Unity acquires is probably for a good reason, and will probably help Unity continue to be a competitor to Unreal, which we really need that to happen. Like, it's not good if Unreal just gains 100% market share. Gearbox has a forum post here for the Borderlands 3 patch and hotfixes. They are fixing stability, general fixes and improvements. You could check it out. Some adjustments to FLAC apparently, and Moz, and some miscellaneous things. I've heard several stories now of people playing Borderlands 3 and just not being given the right number of skill points due to a glitch, and I don't think it's just that I heard the same stories told several times. So it really doesn't feel like this is the best time possible to be playing Borderlands 3. Seems to have some major bugs that I don't feel like Borderlands 1 or Borderlands 2 during their launch period really had. I know Borderlands 1 and maybe Borderlands 2 had some cheating you could do, but they didn't even bother to try and fix that because it just ruins the game for the people who cheat. It didn't really affect anybody else. But beyond that, I don't think there was anything big. I don't recall in probably 120 plus hours I spent playing Borderlands 1 and 2 that I don't recall ever running into any significant bug or issue. Like, I'm trying to think, maybe there was a mission that bugged out, but I don't think so. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Marked as Dead brings psychological thrills to World War II. This is a game that's coming out sometime in 2020, so we don't really need to be focused on that right now. I have to constantly just push myself to remember that we're trying to rush through this. Gamatsu for the Switch has a game, Code Realize Future Blessings for Switch, launches spring 2020 in the West. I've heard of something called Code Realize, I think, or there's just some anime that's slightly related to that name. But this animation style and these characters don't strike me as familiar. Guardian of Rebirth follow-up. Okay. So, I haven't heard of Guardian of Rebirth either. Let's see.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Kill that, I guess, and not die. Gamatsu has an article, Super Robot Wars X for Switch and PC debut trailer. Super Robot Wars being based off a very old anime. skip through this, so we'll just show a little bit of this with hopefully not getting compromised. That's Gundam.
I want you.
So maybe it's a
and you.
combination of several. Yeah, I think that's what that is. It's several Bandai Namco animes merged together fighting each other. I think that's what Super Robot Wars is. It was something like that by that. Maybe not by that name, but there definitely is a game in an anime like that. Gamatsu has an article here. PC, PS4, Switch, River City Melee Mock World Soccer Team trailer. Which I don't know what kind of game this is in the River City series. It seems like it is just battle as a sport. Looks a lot different than River City Girls from Way Forward or some of the other River City games. So it does seem like they're kind of all over the place with the River City series right now. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Cat and Ghostly Road, which there might be a game here, or this might be nothing. It kind of feels like it's an adventure game slash visual novel. Seems kind of Chinese-ish. This one looks so weird it's a little hard to decide. Let's look at the languages. English, Russian, Chinese. So I don't want to dismiss it immediately. It might actually be interesting, so I'll give it a follow. It's early access, it's $5.99. But decent chance here that it is also just some low effort, weird adventure point and click type game that really wouldn't make any sense. Next we have a game on Steam called Hero of the Forest. This is an RPG Maker game. It's $4.99, it's English only. Of course, that's not going to get any more consideration than that. Let's see, is this tagged new or sexual content? Nope. Next we have a visual novel called Syconia, I guess is how that's pronounced, When They Cry. Now the phrase When They Cry either is a series of visual novels or it's just a phrase that it translates poorly from Japanese to English. Phase 1 for you, the replaceable ones. This looks like a different animation style than anything I recognize. So this might be a spin-off series. This might be nothing. It's from Manga Gamer, so that Manga Gamer has about 50-50 reputation. It's $37.99 discounted, English and Japanese with no full audio. So it's got to be really, really good to be technically episodic, which isn't a big deal in a visual novel, but also be $40 without any voice acting and from Manga Gamer, which is slightly questionable. I would also question some of this art style as being just a little weird, a little bad in my opinion. It doesn't feel like that's my style of animation. Well, I'll put it on the fall list and we'll see what happens. Let's see. This next game is showing a backside in the thumbnail of a character in a bikini, and then it seems to just be highlighting a slot machine, and it's $7.99, and it's English and Japanese. So we've got this game here, Nangoku Sodachi. It looks like it's straight up just a slot machine emulator. $7.99. No discount, English and Japanese, no full audio, 24 achievements. That's definitely not a quality game. Let's see. Gamasutra has an article here. Epic clarifies Fortnite matchmaking update amid cross-play balance concerns. If you're playing Fortnite, you check out that article. I'm just going to try not to read too many articles. This is big news somewhat. Gamasutra has a obituary for the former Nintendo lawyer John Kirby, the name of which they took to name the character Kirby. Kirby was the lawyer who represented Nintendo over the legal dispute over Donkey Kong versus King Kong, and they named Kirby's Dream Land after him. He was 79 years old. He passed away. It's an interesting story about the lawsuit that they probably shouldn't have succeeded on, but whatever. Let's see. He was assistant to the head of the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice in the 1960s. Let's see. He helped uncover discriminatory practices against African American voters in southern states. So he did a lot more for the United States than just allowing us to play Donkey Kong. But he was just kind of a lawyer too. And Nintendo has an interesting habit, or at least they did in their early days, of getting the investment of their landlord, which was where they got the name of Mario from, and Kirby's name came from John Kirby. I'm sure they picked some other names from people who worked from them, not as direct employees, but as kind of specialist contractors, which that might be just Japanese hospitality as it was in those days, or it might have been a very smart move to say, well, your name is now part of our company, and you should be proud of it, and you should feel like you're part of the team. Had any of the jobs I ever worked on named something after me, named a project after me or something like that, depending on what the project was, I might have been more interested in being involved with them. Of course, there's also a danger of every one person you celebrate, you may be potentially slighting dozens others. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Marvel's Avengers adds Kamala Khan. The self-avowed Avengers fan joins the fray. Kamala Khan, I think, is not Miss Marvel, or Marvel, Captain Marvel, or whatever the name is. I would say, like, the Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel character from the movies has already been kind of written out of the series from last I heard. So this game, and this is an example of this really is an example of them being very slow to react to changes, and because game development just takes longer. And so here, where we have the same or similar article from TechRaptor, hands-on with Marvel's Avengers cast, Embiggens adds Miss Marvel. Embiggens is not a real word, though it's been colloquially adopted. So yeah, there's a Miss Marvel and then there's Captain Marvel. I think they are different characters. And this is Miss Marvel, and apparently she can make her hands stretch and grow, whereas Captain Marvel is basically just Superman. But I think a Miss Marvel or a Captain Marvel, either characters, probably shouldn't be involved in the game, because I don't think any of them are going to end up in the next generation of characters in the Marvel movies. Which honestly, the right move here would be to put everything in the vault and take a good 4 to 8 years before you release the next Marvel movie. Just end with Endgame and take some time and just stop trying to flood the market with Marvel movie after Marvel movie after Marvel movie. Because you don't want to push people to the point of exhaustion, which is really where this is going to boil down to, is people will just become tired of seeing Marvel movies. This is going to work fine. So we can do that, and then this will do 1 poison damage to everything. Next we have a game on Steam called Him and I, which seems to be some kind of joke game where you're playing with a zombie person. It's like 5% off for $9.49, English and Turkish. And so I don't know if this is supposed to be a real game and it's just made bad or what. It's probably, if anything, it's probably a low effort clone of the Last of Us concept. But yeah, it looks like MS Paint graphics as I'm looking at it, and it's definitely not quality. So there's nothing more that needs to come about that.
I don't have enough mana. I don't have enough mana.
Let's see. Gamma Sutra. Here we go. This was the other story. Kickstarter, a different company, controversially sends unionization to vote after staff firings. Kickstarter has told staff it will recognize a union if employees vote for one in an election certified by the National Labor Relations Board. The news comes after the crowdfunding company, which has helped fund a trove of notable video game projects, was accused of union busting for allegedly firing 3 employees for their involvements in ongoing unionization efforts. Let's see. Dismissing staff minions for union-related activities is forbidden by U.S. labor law. Oh, really? Is it? First, I'd never heard of that. Although Kickstarter has pushed back against those allegations. So, yeah. I don't know what more you really want to take from that. It seems pretty obvious that's exactly what they did, and now they just don't want to get in trouble for it.
This does.
This is just going to... This is just going to kill everybody, so all I can do is this. So yeah, you could totally see how by firing the people that were pushing for unions and then saying, we'll have a staff vote with all the people we didn't fire that we know are anti-union, you can stack that vote in your favor, and that seems exactly what they've done. And this is part of a larger narrative, certainly, of... I don't think I'm going to play any more games today. We'll just finish the news. It's a larger narrative worldwide of video game companies unionizing, and they really needed it, so I don't really blame them. Like 30 packs. But I guess you could have as many as you want. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. The Crow Team co-founder Adam Ladovic has departed the studio to join Google Stadia team. This might be a good movie for him, but it might be a good move for him, but maybe not, because working for Google means you potentially aren't going to accomplish anything ever, but you'll get a big paycheck. Meanwhile, Crow Team, on the other hand, really isn't doing much and isn't going to do too much. I suspect this is probably a pretty amicable departure, and we find that all Crow Team games show up on the Stadia rather quickly. Let's see. This was tweeted out, I believe, by the ESRB. Can a video game improve social aptitude in autistic children? Apparently, a researcher from the Department of Information and Communication Technology at the University of Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona is attempting that. So that's an interesting story, probably not something that's been peer-reviewed enough. If anything, I would suspect having kids with autism play video games only feeds into the idea of them being less sociable, and there might be some small bits of training that would be helpful there, but the number one thing they need to do is deal with real people and learn how to deal with real people, not fake fictional people on the screen. Although the division between a real person and a fake fictional person on the screen is getting smaller and smaller by the day. Next, we have a game on Steam called Cat and Mouse. This is just like a low effort game, asset flip game. The concept's not bad, like a Tom and Jerry type game, which this really isn't Tom and Jerry cartoon Looney Tunes, but a cat trying to catch a mouse as a concept is not a terrible concept. I think if you turn it into Tom and Jerry and make it more cartoony, it would sell a lot better. This is early access, $4.99, and multiplayer only, so you'd have to have friends playing this game too. English only. That's asking way too much. And it seems like we are approaching more cat-centric things, probably because of Halloween. TechRaptor has a cat-based roguelike game called The Cat Lady, not to be confused with the horror point-and-click adventure. Well, actually, it's just a adventure game. It doesn't have mouse support, called The Cat Lady. It now has a release date. It probably isn't something that's going to be too unique. Like a roguelike where you play as cats. There already was a cat adventure game that was rather good. This visually looks bad. It's just a bad color palette choice. And it seems like you're shooting cats more than you're playing as cats, which I don't think that makes sense, because if you are into cats, or cartoon versions of cats at least, I think the last thing you would want to do is be fighting evil cats and shooting them. Seems a little violent. Here's some big news. Gamasutra has an article. EA leaks the personal information of approximately 1,600 FIFA 2020 players, or FIFA 20 players. So yeah, bad security over at EA. Big surprise there. That they don't care about anything other than getting money from you. Next we have a game on Steam here called Boomtris, which looks like it's a space strategy game of some sort. It's at 4:3 ratio and doesn't look very interesting. It's early access for $2.69. Third party EULA, English only. Doesn't need anything more said about it. Then we've got a game on Steam called Karar X, which looks like it's a dungeon crawler game of mediocre quality with some asset flips to make it look like it's more of a 3D experience than I think it really is. Yeah, it looks like it's a 3D platforming thing. $3.19, a bunch of languages supported. Seems like it might have some character selection that you choose, or perhaps some character interaction that you have to have all the characters in certain spots. Puzzle adventure game with decision-based story end. Yeah, this just doesn't look good enough. It just doesn't look polished enough to be relevant. It's the kind of game that I suspect would never get 20 reviews. TechRaptor has an article here. Long-awaited PSVR exclusive Golem finally gets a release date. I barely even remembered this game Golem was still in development, and I believe there is like a couple of games that looked very similar where you were in VR wearing the VR headset and you were controlling a golem from that point. And I don't know if perhaps it's the same game, just had so many changes to it that I was confused as to how many games were like that, or whether there were 3 or 4 games like that actually in development. But Golem in particular was supposed to be like one of the launch titles for PlayStation 4 VR, I think, and it's like 2 years delayed at this point. So it'll be a great example of, did you delay your game because you were having trouble developing it, or did you delay it to make it actually be a quality product? And frankly, in retrospect, now that very few people are even bothering to make VR games, even if Golem turns out to be the best VR game ever made, it's still in the field of being a VR game that's not that interesting. Speaking of VR games that don't look that interesting, here we have Lina VR, Linea, which looks like it's a dodge these red bars type of game, kind of like Beat Saber, but with your body. The video showed the guy dancing around a lot, but VR doesn't work that way, so he's just dancing around for no reason. This is $4.79 discounted, and a bunch of languages: English, French, German, and Russian. Full audio allegedly in English. Yeah, there's no sensors as far as where your body position is in VR by any standard interfaces. So you see this guy like dodging left and right. Like what he's really doing is, if he's playing at all, is moving the handles and pressing a button to dodge and such. Like it totally cannot scan your body. That is possibly something that needs to be added to VR to make it work a little bit better, but still don't think I've fixed most of the problems, which is the expense of VR. Next we have a game on Steam called Reign of Reflection, which looks very polished. Seems to be a adventure strategy game by the tags, and yeah, this looks pretty. It might be a little bit XCOM-ish, but I think that there's enough polish here. Now, it's chapter 1, so there's a bit of a problem of it being episodic. $17.09. English with full audio, 56 achievements, which is kind of a lot. This is the kind of game that would really need to succeed so that they could get a full release out, and every chapter needs to be really good so they can make a complete version. We can see, as developers, this is the only game they have on Steam. But these graphics do look pretty. This does look like something that I would potentially want to play, depending on how long it is. That might be a factor too. Like, a stealth game will eventually lose its appeal if you're 20 hours into it and you're still mostly just stealthing around. TechRaptor has an article here: Stranded sales finding their ways to PC and consoles soon. This looks like another game announcement. We'll see how Stranded sales succeeds or fails. Let's see. Gamasutra has a advertisement, I believe this is. Ubisoft, PlayStation, and Survios reveal the future of AR VR entertainment at XRDC. Informa owns both Gamasutra and XRDC. This is disclosed at the bottom. So this really is just an advertisement. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article. Daedalic unveils a year of rain release date, which this does not look like a Daedalic point-and-click adventure game. I'm not sure they're going to make any more point-and-click adventure games. I think they might just be out of that business. It's a PC real-time strategy launching November 6th. So when it launches, we'll get a better idea about the game. I don't know if I particularly trust Daedalic's new styles of games that they're releasing, but we'll see. Some of the other ones, like Candle, I believe was the name of the game, came out, and I don't know how well that was received. Next we have Try Attack, basically programming language. This is clearly a low-effort programming game with a low-effort Asteroids clone in it. $3.99 discounted. Not making it to the list. This was slightly surprising. Double Fine tweeted out the game, not Knights and Bikes. They retweeted the production company. Well, they retweeted the video production company of the cartoon Costume Quest. A new season of Costume Quest is coming out on Amazon Prime Video. I'm surprised about that a little bit, but I guess Amazon Prime in particular is trying to just have as much kid-friendly video and video in general. There is a chance, I believe, that if Amazon Prime really tried, they could have as good of a selection and quality as Netflix does, while also having all the benefits of what Amazon Prime Video has that Netflix doesn't have, if they put the money into it and try. Whereas Netflix runs the risk of flooding their own catalog with terrible Netflix originals that nobody really likes. Next we have a game on Steam here called Neon Tail, which looks like it's a skating, almost Jet Set Radio style clone, but there's actual polish here, so I can't just dismiss it as a terrible clone. This actually looks like this might be good. Now there was a game called Sunset Overdrive that came out and failed, and it seems like that was a similar type of game. This is early access. It's 20% off for $7.99 in English only. No telling how this really goes. There's a danger here too that this is some low effort Chinese game that's trying to sell on, I don't even know if you would really call this an anime aesthetic as much as a neon anime feel on what would be a more cartoony but more realistic model of a character. And the thing that could break down here is that this might just be one level. This might not be as big or wide an open world as it seems. So you might do this and spend less than an hour going around the city doing that. And it's starting with a photo mode. So they definitely are emphasizing on this main character. But then there's also some dialogue here too. So I see ambition here, and ambition is good, to say the least. We want to see ambitious designs of games, even if they fail, more than we want to see unambitious, terrible games come out. TechRaptor has an article here, Pac-Man Party Royale coming out this year. which if this is coming out on PC, it's probably not animated quite that well. But a party game, it's gonna be exclusive for Apple Arcade. Yeah, this does feel like an Apple Arcade game. It's coming out Q4 2019. Yeah, I could see playing that on Apple Arcade. I could see Apple Arcade in particular being the party platform in general, where it's like, oh, we've got nothing better to do, let's pull out our Apple TV, Apple Arcade games and play them. Although, who's to say whether an Apple TV can really handle the performance of a bunch of complicated party arcade style games. Next we have a game on Steam called Race XXL Space, which this looks like a low effort asset flip game. Yeah, nothing impressive here. Discounted to $7.19, third party EULA, English full audio. We have about, I'd say, 8 more games to cover. We have a game on Steam here called Waterloo, again from Mirrorsoft, to remember the name. Waterloo looks exactly like the other game they just released that was Alcatraz, not Alcatraz, but seemed like it was the same thing. Like, I don't recognize these games as actually being classic DOS games. I don't think they really were. I think they're just garbage games that are being made right now and sold as classic DOS games. Either that or they were garbage DOS games, which certainly there was probably millions of garbage DOS games that got made. That doesn't really mean they needed to come back to Steam. Next we have a game on Steam called Digital Rose, which this thumbnail is catching my attention. The platforming, looks like a Super Meat Boy platforming game where you're shooting things. Not really my style of gameplay. Like, this really does look like this would be one of those frustration style of games. And then you have like a score bar or an energy bar here, and then there's some boss fights. There might be a game here. There might not. Well, without agonizing on it, I'll put it on the follow list and we'll see. It's called Digital Rose. $14.99, English only. 6 achievements. It says 10 levels across 2 campaigns, 5 bosses, 2 playable characters. No, that is way too little content, in my opinion, for $14.99, so I'll take that off. But at least they're getting a little bit prettier when they make these simplistic platformer Super Meat Boy clones. TechRaptor has an article here. Indivisible brings the fight to RPGs. So we've had Indivisible talked about way too much. I really don't care to see any more of it, coverage of it until the game is out and people who actually buy it and put their money behind it and put their reviews behind that. Gamatsu has an article for the PC and Stadia. Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out on November 5th. Let's see. The PC version will be available for pre-purchase with special bonuses through the Rockstar Games launcher on October 9th, and through the Epic Games Store, Green Man Gaming, the Humble Store, GameStop, and additional digital release retailers starting October 23rd. A Steam version is planned for release in December. So they are significantly delaying by a couple of months at least the release for the Steam version, where they've already delayed the PC releases by several months since Red Dead Redemption 2 came out. And I would say it's about 50-50 on whether Red Dead Redemption was super impactful at all, because people talked about it for about a week or so and then they started complaining about the online and really had nothing to say about the single player experience. Whereas for years people were talking about the we're talking about Red Dead Redemption 1. Gamatsu has an article here for the PC. Disc Creations launches October 17th, a Pokemon-esque monster catching RPG. Kind of interesting, I suppose, but we'll see how well it actually gets received. It's not Pokemon-esque if it's making games based on discs as much as it would be Monster Hunter-esque, I believe, is the one that you could put different CDs in and get a new randomized monster. TechRaptor has a review for Code Vein, so let's see what they say about it. I would say Code Vein, even though you're playing as vampires, you're playing as like very unique vampires, so I'd say the story is probably better than they're getting credit for. It's just kind of doing something different with the vampire mythos than just doing the same thing over again. TechRaptor gives it a 6.5. Maybe it deserves that. Code Vein provides a very casual Souls-like experience, which will be perfect for the right sort of person. Actually, that would be perfect for me. Minor bugs and clunky JRPG style exposition aside, the game is a breeze to play through. Pros, I guess, are flexible character builds, a huge amount of character classes to try, fluid Souls-like combat. That sounds very appealing to me. Occasional bugs and a forgettable, easy to beat bosses, I think also appeals to me. So maybe Code Vein is the series for people who couldn't beat any of the Souls games, which would definitely be me. And it clearly is the game for anybody who's into anime characters or into vampires. It's a little surprising none of the other Souls games don't have vampires in them. They have several other things in them. Monsters of sorts. TechRaptor has an article here. My Heroes 1 Justice 2 announced coming next year. So another anime fighter based off My Hero Academia, I believe. Although maybe it's not called My Hero Academia anymore. Maybe they graduated. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article. Feast of Legends is a new tabletop game from Wendy's. I think Wendy's at a certain point is going from being an internet jokester into actually trying to do make games that are successful. KFC did the same thing with their Colonel Sanders dating sim game, and it's one thing to do an April Fool's joke and show it. It's another thing when you start spending effort to actually make it successful and look polished. It loses that joke aspect, and yeah, I think they've jumped the shark on this. The idea of Skyrim on the Alexa was probably the point where that concept started to be overplayed. Like it was funny that one time. It's never going to be funny again. At least not for a decade. And from what I hear, the Colonel Sanders dating sim game is also awful. Here we have a game on Steam, Magic Farm 3 Ice Danger. This looks like it's just one of those adventure games with maybe some gameplay element in it. This is weird, actually. It looks almost like it's a RPG game, but then has the aesthetics of a hidden object game. Let's see. I guess maybe it's a farming game, but it kind of looks like a clicker. Kind of feels like Plants vs. Zombies if it was more fast-paced. Let's see. If we looked at this developer, does he have a Magic Farm 2 and 1 on Steam? No, he doesn't. But he does have several other games that are mixed and negative to outnumber the one game he does have. So yeah, this developer has such a bad name on Steam that I'm not willing to give this a chance. Otherwise, I would kind of put this on the follow list and see if maybe, just maybe, it was doing something unique. But nope. Next we have a game on Steam called Zelly, Z-E-L-L-E. And this looks like a low effort game, if any of these images want to load. Let's see. $8.09 discounted, English and Japanese. This looks like maybe it's a weird Japanese game. Yeah, weird Japanese indie game that frankly I would be unfair to every other weird indie game that I have dismissed if I put this on the follow list. We're starting to see an increase in more weird indie Japanese games, which is, I guess, okay. But yeah, I can't put this on the follow list. It's just too weird looking and too unpolished. Despite my affinity for most things Japanese, as far as video games are concerned. Gamma Sutra has an article, Get a Job, Bonus XP is hiring an art director. That is in Dallas, Texas. Seems like the Dallas area is a pretty growing area to be a game developer. Typically it's the North Dallas area, but yeah, they sometimes just call it Dallas. Of course, also the Dallas, Texas area seems to cover quite a lot of places. This is an interesting tweet that Kosh Media put out. To celebrate the Ghostbusters video game remastered, they're giving away 10 copies of Ghostbusters 1 and 2 Blu-ray pack. I assume that would be the UK versions, and probably only open to UK people. This would be the first instance ever that I can recall of giving away what are pretty evergreen and probably pretty overstocked Blu-rays to promote a video game, particularly a video game remaster coming out. I guess you could have done that with the Mummy Remastered if they'd given away a free copy of the Blu-ray with that, but that's kind of weird. TechRaptor has the same article here. Gearbox Software and former lawyer Wade Callender mutually dropped the lawsuits. Apparently this is more detailed because it says both suits dismissed with prejudice meaning it can't be brought up again. So it seems like there probably was less of a payout in either direction. I wouldn't be surprised if these mutual agreements actually just revolved around no settlement of any money whatsoever. But who knows? We'll never get the inside details unless that information leaks somehow. Next we have a game on Steam called Space Viking Raiders VR. Why this game would need to be in VR, I have no idea. This looks like just a weird assemblage of a top-down strategy game of some sort. Top-down action shooter or some sort. Just nothing interesting here. $6.99 and English full audio. Yep, nothing interesting there. We have about 4 more pages to go through and then we'll be done for the weekend. Next we have a game on Steam called Remote Life, which looks like it's an not Arkanoid, side scroll shooter, whatever style game. Let's Let's see. And I really think I have to stay a little firm on not being interested in playing these types of games. If somehow I get interested in playing these side-scrolling shooter games, then I'll just have to do a deep dive and go back and find games that I just didn't get before. This is $18.99 for English full audio. That's extremely expensive for these types of games, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm not gonna put it on the follow list. Yeah, TechRaptor has kind of a follow-up story. Summerfall Studios moves its crowdfunding to Fig due to the Kickstarter union situation. What is Summerfall Studios, though? Developing. Yeah, it would be more helpful for this extra side story if they told me what Summerfall Studios' Fig campaign was going to be about. Is it a first-person shooter? Is it a top-down action game? Is it a strategy game? Gamma Sutra has the same article here. Co-founder Mike O'Brien is leaving Guild Wars developer ArenaNet. We already talked about that, and we'll have to see whether that relates to the controversy from about a year ago around ArenaNet or not. And then Gamma Sutra has a Get a Job, Insomniac, Manticore, and more are hiring. So Green Park Studios in Calabasas, California for an art director, senior product manager for Manticore in San Mateo, California, rig technical animator for Big Red Button in El Segundo, California, lead level designer in Insomniac Games in Nice, France, a senior programmer for Disbelief in Nice, France. Also, those all sounded like new job listings too. Interesting. Usually when I see a long list like that, it's just repeating things I've already talked about. And then that puts me at the Humble Bundle store, and I'm fairly certain that there's no new bundle today. And then that, I guess we could scroll up to the new tweets. I have Randy Pitchford tweeted out a gold keys for Borderlands 3, but really if that's all he tweets out, then he's doing his job right. And there's some other games that I might even curate some of those games. Twitch support is running into a bug that they're dealing with. I'm not even going to mention it. I think going forward, if there are bugs, I'm just not going to mention it. The Epic Store has been pretty good also about not even mentioning problems. Let's see. Just scrolling down here, and yeah, by the looks of it, nothing new has happened on Twitter. Although I've messed with the way Twitter looks so much that it's possible I'm just missing content. Alright, well, that's gonna be it for this recording, and apparently I'm almost out of space. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.